Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today's slightly different video, a bit of an experiment for me. I've got my trusty Jinhao 100 here, or at least one of them. This has got the medium Jinhao nib. It's a pen, it's a nib that I really enjoy using. But I wanted to change things up a bit. So what I thought I'd do is I'd try swapping the nib. I've got a Kiwi Pens Cursive Italic nib, had it a while, so I thought it's about time it came out, and let's try it in an actual pen. And this is the sacrificial victim I've decided to use. So join me now down on the mat. We'll start with a writing sample with the current nib, swap the nib, do another writing sample, and if necessary, I can always try and work on the nib a little bit as we're going through the video. Welcome down to the table. So here we've got the Jinhao 100. I say it's got the medium nib on it. We're going to start with a writing sample. So we've got a Jinhao 100 medium nib. The cost of the pen, 25 Aussie dollars. The ink, it's by Herban, and it's Terre de Fouet. So I see some nice shading coming through in here, it's like a nice orangey brown ink. Drying times, so immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. One minute. Still very wet. I'm going to do 2 minutes as well on here. After 2 minutes there we're dry. So this gives us our baseline. We'll do a sentence as well, just so we're keeping everything consistent. Gorgeous feedback on this. And flow test. So this is the writing sample before. So let's get this out of the way. What we're going to be doing is swapping for this. This is a Kiwi's pen and it's a Cursive Italic nib. This was $33 for two. So that works out, about $16.50 each. So here's the nib. Hopefully you can see there on the top. That's where we got that Cursive Italic part. Looks a bit like a stub, doesn't it? So pop that down to the side. The equipment I'm going to be using. First one is this tray here. I originally bought it to put ink samples in, but my sample containers are too big for the holes. But what this does, this is handy. So when I take the converter out, I can stand it in here without having to worry about the ink going all over. So that goes up at the top. Next, I've got these. These are what I use to grip hold of the pen and the nib to pull it out. I bought a strip of these. I can't remember what it was. It was dirt cheap and I cut them up. So I've got about 100 of these now. I just cut them into these square shapes. These are just about the right size for me, that I don't have to worry about them being too big, but also not too small. Obviously, we're going to have the pen. But before I start taking apart the pen, what I'm going to do is put on these gloves. These are just some, is it vinyl gloves? Problem I have, I've got quite large hands, and although these are the large gloves, they are a bit of a nuisance to fit. I've seen on, I think it was Miss Marilyn Darling had them, so I've just got some on order from Temu, where it's very similar to these, but it just goes over the finger, so I've ordered them because I think they'll work out a lot better for me. So we've got to take apart the pen. So off comes the lid and off comes the body. We're not interested in them two parts. Out comes the converter and then it goes into the tray. So I stand it so it's more or less stood up, so I don't have to worry again about ink coming out, which just leaves me this. So what I do with one gripper, I get hold very gently, making sure I hold both the section and the nib, and I try and hold it down near the bottom. The other one holds the actual rest of the pen, and a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of pulling. It's very, very tight. It doesn't want to move. There we go. bit of effort and it came out. So this now, I just go and sit that on top of my holder there. Just lay it down. Again, just so it won't roll away. Got some paper tissue. And I'll drop the old nib on there until I can clean it out. Put it on there because I don't want ink everywhere. New nib. Line that up on the feed. And then checking to see if there's a lip. So at the bottom here, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, there's a little straight lip and the rest of it's curved. On the feed, there's the straight part and the rest is curved. So I need to line up two straight portions and then delete with a bit of luck. That doesn't want to go in. Make sure I get these lined up properly. This is a bit I always struggle with, getting them lined up. There's the straight part. So we're now not lined up. This is what I always struggle with. So I've not really tried this very often. Normally I'm just pulling out a nib and then putting the same nib back in. This is the first time I've actually tried it with a different nib. Making sure that the feed is lined up central with the nib. Doesn't look to be far enough in. Well, we'll know in a second. Let's just try popping that on the body. And will the cap go on? Yeah, it does, but only just. I want to try and get that nib in a bit further if I can. So let me again have a little bit of a fiddle. Just going to take this off camera for a second. Okay, so I've now got the nib better, so it's in further. I had to put a fair bit of pressure on it. I was being too tentative. This is one of my problems. I do end up being very tentative because I don't want to break things. So let's insert the converter. There we go. And we'll put the pen back together. Then I'm going to leave it for a couple of minutes with it stood on its end to hopefully give gravity a chance to get that ink down into the actual feed. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. So I've given it a couple of minutes. This is just some scrap paper. I've definitely got ink flowing through there. Actually feels quite nice. This is just what I call my rough book. It's where I write all my notes. As you can see, I scribble all over it. I doodle on it. It's just sat there on my desk. So we're fetching that Oxford optic paper again. So we're using the same paper. Let's get this lined up. Let's move that off to the side. Then I don't accidentally knock an inky nib all over. So let's try some writing with this new nib. So we've got Jinhao 100. And now we've got a Cursive Italic nib. So the Italic nib was, I said, it's $16.50 plus the $25 for the actual pen. It feels a little bit scratchy as if it's catching the paper. The ink by Herban, and it's Terre de Fouet. I'm going to do line variation before I do wetness. Line variation, we didn't do this on the previous nib. There's going down with no pressure. And add some pressure so I get a slightly wider line. But going across, a lot thinner. This is what I'm saying. To me, this just feels like a scratchy stub nib, to be honest. No pressure with, none with, none with. Now, I don't know, do you get anything if you've got the line? No, not really. Drying times, so immediate, very dry. 10 seconds. You know, we're dry there at 10 seconds. What I'm going to do is, I'm wondering, maybe there's not enough ink got through yet into the actual feed itself. I'm just going to prime the feed a little bit. So I've now primed the feed. So hopefully, if it was an issue with not enough ink, I'd had time to go down using natural gravity. Let's write the sentence. So, grumpy wizards and then flow test and going backwards. To be honest, I'm not sure what I think about this. It does feel very scratchy, so when I'm going down it's not too bad, going across not too bad, but when I'm writing does feel like it's scratching at times. Not sure if that's being caught over the sound of the dog snoring. I like the line variation. It's certainly made a very wet pen into, to be quite honest, a very dry pen. After flooding the feed, after writing a bit, that is coming across wetter. Let's do another dry times. So there's a media, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, nearly dry there, 1 minute. After a minute, smudging a teeny little bit, but I'll say, yeah, definitely we've taken a very wet pen, turned it into a lot drier writer. I love the line variation, I do like that, I think it looks very nice. The scratchiness, it adds character. This is a fairly smooth paper, so I need to see what it's like on some of my more textured papers. What I may need to do is take some micro mesh to it just to smooth off the edges a bit. That could be all that's wrong with it, but it could be it's actually as designed. I'm not used to a Cursive Italic nib, so I need to really play around, find out the best way to use it to get the best results. So, yeah, quite interesting, quite enjoyed it. I love the Jinhao 100s, and I just think this adds that little extra dimension to my writing. And certainly now that I've got ink through the feed properly, we're seeing a nicer colour. So these are my thoughts on changing the nib on the Jinhao 100 Centennial. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. As I say, bit of an experiment this, really enjoyed doing it. I like to try and play around doing different things. What are your thoughts on changing nibs? I just used Jinhao 100. Nice, affordable pen, doesn't matter if I messed it up too badly. How do you go about doing your nib swaps? Have you ever thought about it? Have you decided not to? I know I keep pointing down, so please drop a comment down there. Let's know your experiences, your thoughts on this. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.